I swear, I just wanted to help my gorgeous 23-year-old landlord, Chloe, with a favor. But as her soft body pressed against mine, her faint, sweet scent filling my nostrils, the apartment door slammed open. Another bombshell of a girl stood there, pointing a finger right at my nose, fire practically shooting from her eyes. "You creep. Let go of my cousin, or I'm calling the cops." I looked down at my hand, still resting on her delicate waist, and I totally froze. Sweat beaded on my forehead, trickling down to the floor. Not from effort, but from pure nerves. My gorgeous landlord, Chloe, was currently stuck in a ridiculously contorted pose on her yoga mat, a true test of flexibility. One leg was high in the air, the other tucked in front of her, but her upper body was awkwardly suspended, unable to go up or down due to a lack of core strength. "Ethan, hurry, give me a hand, my leg's cramping." Chloe's voice was laced with a mix of tremor and pain. Her pale cheeks flushed an alluring pink from exertion and embarrassment. She was wearing a light purple, skin-tight yoga outfit that perfectly accentuated her curvy, hourglass figure. In her current predicament, her ample chest was pressed together even more dramatically, rising and falling with her quick, shallow breaths. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. "Chloe, this. How do I even help?" I squatted beside her, completely at a loss. "Hold my waist. Give me some leverage. Help me up." Chloe gritted her teeth, a desperate resolve in her voice. "You heard her, not me." I took a deep breath, extended my hands, and carefully placed them on her impossibly slender waist. Warmth and an astonishing elasticity met my touch. My heart skipped a beat. Chloe's body gave a sudden jolt, her breathing momentarily catching. I could distinctly feel her skin beneath the thin fabric tense for an instant, then subtly relax. Use some force." Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't dare hesitate, slowly applying pressure to help her sit up. The living room was terrifyingly silent, save for our increasingly ragged breaths. An intimate atmosphere began to ferment, and the temperature in the air seemed to climb a few degrees, just as I was concentrating, feeling the astounding sensation against my palms. Bang! A thunderous crash as the door burst open, as if hit by a battering ram, slamming violently against the wall. I jumped, spinning my head around. Standing in the doorway was a girl in cut-off shorts and a crop top. She bore a striking resemblance to Chloe, but her aura was completely different. If Chloe was a gentle moonbeam, this girl was a roaring inferno. Her figure was just as captivating, with long, pale, perfectly straight legs. But at that moment, her beautiful face was contorted with absolute fury. Her gaze instantly locked onto Chloe and me in our tangled position, and specifically my hand still on Chloe's waist. Her pupils constricted, her pretty eyes first showing shock, then quickly replaced by boundless anger and contempt. "You pervert!" A shrill roar, like a thunderclap out of nowhere, made my eardrums throb. "What the hell are you doing to my cousin? Let go of her!" The girl lunged forward like an enraged lioness, swinging her purse in a wide arc. It whooshed through the air, carrying a whiff of perfume, and came crashing down toward my head. My scalp tingled. Instinct made me instantly release Chloe and scramble backward, rolling awkwardly. Thwack! Her purse smashed solidly onto the spot where I'd just been crouching, emitting a dull thud. At the same moment, Chloe, deprived of my support, let out a cry. Her upper body completely gave out, and she slumped bonelessly onto the yoga mat in an even more bizarre pose. "Chloe, are you okay?" The girl immediately rushed to Chloe's side, checking on her frantically. I'm fine." Chloe was so embarrassed she wanted to disappear into the floor. She struggled to sit up, but her cramping leg made her gasp in pain. I climbed to my feet, surveying the chaotic scene, my head throbbing. "Look, man, let me explain. Things aren't what they seem." "Shut up, you scumbag." The girl whirled around, her almond eyes blazing. She pointed her finger at my nose and spat. "I saw it with my own eyes. You think you can deny it? Trying to get handsy with my cousin while she's home alone. Don't you have any shame?" Her name was Maya, Chloe's cousin. I'd heard Chloe mention her before, but this was my first time meeting her. And what a hell of a first impression it was. I really wasn't. Chloe was just cramping up from yoga, and I was just trying to... "You still calling my cousin Chloe?" Maya's temper flared even more. She shielded Chloe like a protective hen. I'm telling you, get out. Now, or I'm calling the police and pressing charges for assault. Chloe, flustered and angry, her cheeks beet red, tugged on Maya's arm. Maya, stop talking nonsense. I asked him to help me. Chloe, you're just too nice. That's why guys like him take advantage of you. Maya wasn't having it. Look at his shifty eyes. He's clearly trouble. Good thing I showed up when I did. Or who knows what would have happened. Me, speechless. Do I really look that creepy? I touch my face. I mean, I'm no supermodel, but I've got decent features, dark brows, and big eyes, right? Maya, calm down. Chloe was getting genuinely annoyed now, her voice rising. Ethan was helping me. You need to apologize to him. Apologize to him? Why should I? Maya's stubborn streak kicked in. Chloe, has he charmed you or something? This is about your reputation, and you're siding with some stranger? Watching the two cousins argue in front of me, I felt my temples begin to throb. What a mess this was turning into. I cleared my throat, deciding to take the initiative and break the deadlock. Ahem, so, Maya, right? I took a step forward. Stop. Don't you dare come closer. Maya immediately glared at me with suspicion. I stopped, raising my hands in a gesture of surrender, trying to force what I hoped was a benevolent smile. Actually, this is all a misunderstanding. Not only am I not what you think, but quite the opposite. I'm a professional, a posture and rehabilitation specialist. Maya blinked, looking at me with suspicion. A what now? Chloe also looked at me with a bewildered expression, clearly unaware of my sudden, lofty new profession. I was inwardly panicking, but my face remained perfectly serious, even profound. What Chloe experienced just now in professional terms is called neural spasm induced by muscle overextension. If not handled properly, it can lead to permanent ligament damage. What I was doing was the core muscle group assisted realignment method, the most scientific emergency technique. The air in the living room seemed to freeze. Maya and Chloe were both completely baffled by my stream of technical jargon, staring at me dumbfounded. Maya, especially, looked as if her blazing anger had been doused with a bucket of cold water. Though her eyes still held suspicion, her fiery demeanor had noticeably cooled. What realignment method? I've never heard of it, she stammered. Opportunity knocks. I inwardly gloated, but my expression grew even more composed, exuding an almost professorial air. There's a lot you haven't heard of. I gave her a dismissive glance, my eyes carrying a subtle, almost imperceptible scrutiny, finally settling on her posture. Take you, for instance. I shook my head, letting out a regretful sigh. So young, yet your anterior pelvic tilt is quite severe, and you have a slight scoliosis. Do you habitually put more weight on your right foot when you walk? And do you often experience lower back pain, a protruding lower abdomen, and find that when pants fit your waist, they're always too tight around the hips? With each sentence I uttered, Maya's eyes widened a fraction more. By the time I finished, she was completely dumbfounded, her mouth agape, staring at me as if I'd seen a ghost. You, how did you know? She instinctively straightened her back and touched her lower abdomen, her expression shifting from shock to genuine alarm. Of course, I just made all that up. No, wait, I observed it. Bombshells like Maya, who constantly wear heels and tight pants, usually have these issues. I just rattled off a few common postural problems and pinned them all on her. And I hit every single one. Chloe also stared at me in surprise, then at her cousin, her eyes filled with disbelief. My inner self was practically cackling, but on the surface, I remained calm and composed, even adopting a slightly pitying expression. As I said, I'm a professional. I stated slowly, my voice quiet but imbued with undeniable authority. A person's posture reveals all their habits and potential health issues. To me, it's as simple as reading an open book. I clasp my hands behind my back, pace a couple of steps, and continue my charade. In your case, if you don't correct this soon, within 5 years, you'll be facing herniated discs and knee degradation. Then forget about showing off those long legs and shorts. You might not even be able to walk normally. What? Maya was genuinely alarmed now, forgetting her previous anger. She asked anxiously, then what do I do? Is there a way to fix it? Of course there's a way, I said, stroking my chin in a show of profound thought. However, the correction process requires professional guidance and some specialized assistive movements. As I spoke, my gaze meaningfully flickered to Chloe, who was still slumped on the yoga mat. Chloe instantly caught my drift, her face flushing bright red again. She shot me a look that was a mix of annoyance and amusement. That scoundrel, using her as a prop. Maya followed my gaze, then connecting it to our intimate pose earlier, her brain finally seemed to click. Her face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions. Pale, then green, then settling on an embarrassed crimson flush. So you were actually helping my cousin?" she asked in a small voice, her confidence completely deflated. I didn't answer directly, instead counter-questioning. "What else? Do you really think with your cousin's stunning looks, if I really wanted to do something, I'd choose such a clumsy method?" Chloe heard it, and a strange sweetness bloomed in her heart. Her face grew even hotter, and she quietly lowered her head further. Maya was completely silenced. She looked at my serious expression, then at her cousin's shy demeanor, and finally realized what a huge blunder she'd made. Oh no, I totally misjudged him. And worse, she'd revealed her poor posture secret to the master himself. Total social suicide. This was a catastrophic level of mortification. Maya's face, already red, deepened to a beet red, like a ripe tomato. She stood rooted to the spot, awkwardly twisting the hem of her shirt, her eyes darting away. All her previous aggressive swagger had vanished. Listen, she fumbled for a long time, finally squeezing out a few words through gritted teeth. I'm sorry. What was that?" "Wind's too loud. Didn't quite catch it," I said, deliberately cupping an ear and leaning in. I said, "I'm sorry." Maya suddenly lifted her head, as if bracing herself, and yelled it out. After yelling, her face flushed even deeper, and she looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Chloe finally struggled to sit up from the yoga mat, rubbing her still tingling leg. She looked at her spirited cousin with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. "Maya, I told you it was a misunderstanding. How was I supposed to know?" Maya pouted indignantly, muttering under her breath. "Who makes them pose like that?" I chuckled softly, walked over to Chloe, and naturally extended a hand. "Can you stand up?" Chloe hesitated for a moment, then placed her soft, boneless hand in my palm. I gently pulled, helping her to her feet. Once she was steady, she instinctively tried to withdraw her hand, but I didn't let go. Instead, I gave her palm a soft squeeze. Chloe's whole body trembled, as if she'd received an electric shock. She quickly looked up at me, her eyes a mix of shyness and reproach. I winked at her, then finally released her hand. Her hand was so soft, so smooth. "All right, now that the misunderstanding's cleared up, I'll head back to my room," I said, stretching and acting as if nothing had happened. "Chloe, your leg just cramped, so no more yoga today. Get some rest." "Okay. Thanks for today, Ethan." Chloe's voice was soft, carrying a barely perceptible hint of tenderness. "Anytime." I turned to go back to my room, but paused when I passed Maya. "Maya, miss. WH, what do you want?" Maya looked at me warily, like a startled rabbit. I looked her up and down, then stated matter-of-factly, "Since you genuinely apologized, I'll give you some free advice. Don't sleep on your stomach. It's bad for your spine. And wear high heels less often. Do more glute bridges. That should help alleviate your anterior pelvic tilt a bit." Without waiting for her reaction, I gave a casual wave and walked in my room, closing the door behind me. In the living room, Maya stood frozen, unconsciously pondering my words. "Glute bridges? What are those?" Chloe watched her cousin's bewildered and conflicted expression, finally unable to hold back, and let out a soft laugh. "Chloe, you're laughing?" Maya snapped out of it, stopping her foot in a mix of shame and annoyance. "Who told you to jump to conclusions and accuse him like that?" Chloe walked over to her, tapping her forehead. "I was just worried about you." Maya whined, hugging Chloe's arm. "But Chloe, this new tenant of yours, who is he really? Is he actually some kind of posture therapist?" Chloe's eyes flickered. The image of Ethan's perfectly serious face as he spouted nonsense earlier flashed in her mind, and her smile deepened. "I don't know," she said softly, "but he seems pretty interesting." Back in my room, I leaned against the door and let out a long breath. Man, that was intense. For a moment there, My brain was working faster than a supercomputer. Good thing I'm into all sorts of random science videos. Otherwise, I might never have shaken off that pervert label today. Recalling the feel of her waist in my palms and Chloe's shy gaze, my heart started to quicken again. Damn it. This gorgeous landlord, she really is something else. Not only is she beautiful with a killer figure, but her personality is sweet too. If it weren't for her fiery cousin, that atmosphere today might have gotten even hotter. While I was daydreaming, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. Chloe, so sorry about earlier today. I apologize on Maya's behalf. Chloe, she just has a fiery temper, no harm meant. I smiled, my fingers flying across the screen. No worries. Young people, full of fire, totally get it. But your cousin definitely needs some serious coaching, both her temper and her body. After sending it, I specifically put coaching in quotation marks. It was a while before Chloe replied, with just one word, Chloe ugh, followed by an emoji of a frying pan hitting someone's head. I could picture her on the other end, looking adorable, both embarrassed and annoyed. The smile playing on my lips was impossible to hide. Looks like after today's commotion, my relationship with my gorgeous landlord just took a step forward. Just as I was about to seize the advantage and send her a few more playful texts, there was a knock on my door. Knock, knock, knock. Who is it? I asked. A muffled voice came from outside. It's me, Maya. I paused. What did this little firecracker want now? Did she figure out I was messing with her and come back for revenge? I cautiously approached the door and peered through the peephole. Maya was standing alone at the door, her hands clasped behind her back, her face showing a mix of awkwardness and inner struggle. She changed into a casual pair of athletic shorts and a t-shirt, looking even more youthful and energetic. Those long legs of hers were definitely an asset. I hesitated, then opened the door. What's up? I leaned against the doorframe, asking lazily. Maya looked up at me, her eyes darting away, cheeks slightly flushed. Master, she began softly. That thing you mentioned earlier. The Glut Bridge, how do you do it? Can you? Teach me. I almost choked. Master, this little firecracker actually bought it? Seeing her eager yet slightly embarrassed expression, I suddenly found it rather amusing. Ahem, I can certainly provide guidance. I clear my throat, forcing myself to maintain my master persona. However, my consultation fees are quite steep. What? It costs money. Maya's face immediately contorted in pain. Duh, knowledge is priceless. I gave her a sideways glance. Giving you my landlord's cousin, I'll give you a 20% discount. 200 a session. 200? You've got to be kidding me. Maya's eyes widened, her fiery temper almost flaring up again. Take it or leave it. I shrugged, making to close the door. It's your body, your responsibility. Don't come crying to me when people mistake you for a bent shrimp walking down the street. Maya's chest heaved with anger, her loose t-shirt unable to conceal her impressive curves. She bit her lip, struggling for a long moment, clearly in an internal battle. Ultimately, her anxiety about her figure and health triumphed over her stinginess. Fine, 200 it is. She stomped her foot, as if making a momentous decision. But it has to work. If it doesn't, you won't get a dime from me. Don't worry, master-grade work is always top-notch. I snapped my fingers and stepped aside, gesturing her in. Maya walked into my room, curiously looking around. My room wasn't huge, but it was reasonably clean and tidy. Right here. She pointed to a small, clear space on the floor. Where else? You expecting a 5-star gym? I retorted a little testily. Lie down. Maya's face flushed again, but she obediently laid down on the floor. Her legs were pressed together, stretched out straight, hands at her sides, like a soldier awaiting inspection. Not like that. I shook my head, walking over and crouching beside her. A fresh, sweet scent of youth wafted toward me. Bend your knees, bring your heels close to your glutes, feet shoulder-width apart, I instructed, reaching out to adjust her pose. As soon as my hand touched her calf, she stiffened, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Don't touch me there, she cried nervously. How else am I supposed to teach you if I don't touch? I roll my eyes. Relax. Your muscles are all tense. How can you even exercise? Just think of it as penance for falsely accusing me earlier. Maya was so flustered she couldn't speak. So she just took a deep breath and tried to relax her body. I took her ankles, adjusting her feet to the correct position. Then my hand moved up her calves to her knees. Don't let your knees cave in. Open them up. My palm pressed against the outside of her knees, and I could distinctly feel the warmth and softness of her skin. Maya's breathing quickened slightly, her eyes flickering, refusing to meet mine. After adjusting her lower body, I stood up, looking down at her. Now, listen to my instructions. Tighten your core. Use your glutes to push your hips up so your body forms a straight line from your shoulders to your knees. Maya began to exert herself, seemingly half understanding. However, she clearly hadn't grasped the technique. Her hips lifted only symbolically, then fell back down. No, ifronat. Did you even eat? Engage your glutes. Now your lower back. I don't know how, Maya said, a hint of frustration in her voice. I sighed, crouching down again. Looks like I'll have to use special methods. With that, I extended 2 fingers and lightly, but pointedly, poked her firm glutes. Here, feel that? Engage these muscles. Eat. Maya yelped as if electrocuted, springing up from the floor. Her face beat red as she glared at me. You're a pervert. I looked at her innocently. I'm helping you find your activation point. It's called tactile instruction, all right? Why is your mind so dirty? You. Maya pointed at me, trembling with anger, unable to form a complete sentence. Just then, there was another knock on the door. Ethan, is Maya in there with you? It was Chloe's voice. Maya flinched, forgetting our argument and looking nervously at the door. I raised an eyebrow at Maya, then called out, She is Chloe. I'm just giving her a posture assessment and initial correction. Chloe outside was silent for 2 seconds. Then her voice, laced with amusement, drifted through. Oh, carry on then. I was just checking. Maya, don't give Ethan too much trouble. After she spoke, the soft patter of her slippers faded away. Maya's face was so red it looked like it might bleed. She looked at me, then thought about Chloe's words, feeling like she'd lost face for a lifetime today. So, are we going to keep practicing? I asked, amused. Maya gritted her teeth, shot me a furious glare, and then, surprisingly, lay back down. Practice, she practically hissed through clenched teeth. It seemed her determination to look good had overcome everything else. If you dare touch me inappropriately again, I'll make you regret it, she warned. All right. I wave her off dismissively. For the next 15 minutes, a strange scene played out in my room. A bombshell of a girl lay on the floor, repeatedly lifting and lowering her hips. And I, like a strict drill sergeant, continuously barked out commands. Yes, just like that. A little higher. Feel that burn in your glutes. Hold it. 10 more. Are you a snail? Faster. I had to admit, Maya's physique wasn't bad. Under my professional guidance, she quickly grasped the glute bridge technique, and her movements became more and more precise. Sweat soaked her t-shirt, clinging to her body and making her impressive curves even more pronounced. Her ragged gasps echoed distinctly in the small room. Finally, after the last set, Maya collapsed onto the floor like a dead fish, not wanting to move a muscle. How was that? Feel those glutes working? I handed her a bottle of water. She took the water, chugged a few gulps, and then slowly came back to life. My butt feels like it's not even mine anymore, she panted, but a hint of excitement danced in her eyes. But it actually seems to be working. My back feels so much better. Well, of course it does. Look who's teaching you, I said, lifting my chin proudly. Maya rolled her eyes at me, but the hostility in them had significantly diminished. She struggled to sit up, looking at me with a complex expression. Hey, are you really some kind of therapist? Authentic as they come, I replied without missing a beat. Then she hesitated, but finally asked, Do you think I'm a lost cause? Seeing her cautious yet hopeful eyes, I suddenly didn't find this little firecracker so annoying anymore. A lost cause? Of course not. I nodded, completely serious. But it requires a long-term, systematic correction plan, and you'll have to strictly follow my guidance. Okay. Maya nodded vigorously, a flame of hope igniting in her eyes. Master, from now on, I'm sticking with you. Me, speechless again. Hold on, I just wanted to make a couple $100 off you. How did you end up latching onto me? Over the next few days, my life underwent a drastic change. Before, I was just an ordinary tenant, living a monotonous existence, my interactions with my beautiful landlord, Chloe, limited to rent payments and occasional greetings. But now, I had gained the identity of a master and an inseparable female disciple. Maya, as if she'd suddenly found enlightenment, revered me as her master completely. Every day after work, she'd show up at my door promptly, rain or shine. "Master, what are we practicing today?" "Master, I think my leg shape looks a little straighter." "Master, is my form correct?" She was driving me crazy, but I had no choice but to bite the bullet, learn exercises on the fly from the internet, and teach her these so-called corrective movements. Things like wall squats, swan arms, ballet sculpt. Anything that was hyped up online, I made her try, and surprisingly, it actually worked pretty well. Whether it was a placebo effect or the exercises genuinely worked, Maya's posture visibly improved. She no longer walked hunched over. Her entire demeanor had a noticeable boost, and my status as master grew increasingly solid. The most annoying part was that she also started treating me like her personal health guru. "Master, I ate spicy hot pot today. Will that affect my progress?" "Master, I stayed up late binging a show yesterday. Will I get dark circles?" "Master, I felt like I hadn't found a tenant, but adopted a daughter." Chloe, meanwhile, was like a gentle observer, watching Maya and me playfully bicker every day, always with a smile. She no longer kept a polite distance from me, as before. Sometimes, she'd bring sliced fruit to my room, saying it was to reward her hardworking master. Other times, she'd sit on the living room couch, watching TV, and observe me guiding Maya with amusement. The atmosphere between us also grew increasingly subtle. That evening, Maya was once again sweating profusely in my room. Chloe, in a silk nightgown, leaned casually against my doorframe, a glass of red wine in hand, smiling as she watched us. Her soft, long hair cascaded over her shoulders. Under the light, her delicate collarbone was subtly visible, and her long, pale legs were crossed, exuding a mature and alluring charm. "Master Ethan, you're working hard," she said, swirling her wine glass and giving me a captivating smile. My heartbeat immediately went haywire again. "Serving beautiful women is no hardship," I replied, feigning nonchalance. Maya, exhausted as a dog nearby, heard our conversation and protested indignantly. "Chloe, why aren't you worried about me? I'm the one doing all the hard work. Who told you to offer yourself up for coaching?" Chloe took a sip of wine, her eyes sparkling, looking at me with a knowing half smile. She put particular emphasis on the word coaching. I felt a wave of heat rush to my cheeks. This woman, she was definitely doing it on purpose. She was a total enchantress. "All right, that's enough for today." I quickly called a halt. If we kept going, I was afraid I'd be the one to give out first. Maya looked as if she'd been granted a pardon, collapsing onto the floor. Chloe set her wine glass down, walked in, and bent down to help her cousin up. As she bent over, the neckline of her nightgown gaped slightly, revealing a breathtaking expanse of pale skin that flashed before my eyes. I quickly averted my gaze, feeling a blush creep up my nose. "Look at you, all sweaty and tired. Go take a shower," Chloe said, affectionately pinching Maya's cheek. Maya, clutching her lower back, limped out of my room. In an instant, only Chloe and I were left in the room. The atmosphere immediately became quiet and intimate. "So, Chloe, if there's nothing else, I think I'll call a night," I said, looking down, not daring to meet her eyes. "What's the rush?" Chloe didn't leave. She walked closer to me, and a scent, a mix of red wine and fresh shower gel, enveloped me. My palms began to sweat from nerves. "Ethan," she suddenly spoke, her voice soft. I looked up. Her face was incredibly close, so close I could see the fine downy hairs on her skin and my own reflection in her bright, black gemstone eyes. "That day, you were intentionally messing with Maya, weren't you?" she asked, looking at me, a sly smile playing on her lips. My heart gave a violent lurch. "Messing with her? What are you talking about?" I feigned composure. "Still pretending?" Chloe extended a slender finger and lightly poked my chest. "Posture and rehabilitation specialist, core muscle group assisted realignment method." I looked it up. None of those things exist. "Crap. My cover's blown. My mind went blank. I was already calculating whether jumping out the window or groveling on my knees would seem more sincere. Seeing my ghost-struck expression, Chloe finally couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. She laughed so hard her body swayed, her chest rising and falling dramatically. You are really something, she said, tears almost forming from laughter. It's the first time I've ever seen anyone have my fearless cousin wrapped around their finger like that. I stared at her blankly, momentarily unable to process it. She's not mad. But Chloe's smile faded, her eyes growing a little serious. Even though you were messing with her, the things you taught her actually seemed to work. Lately, she really has been much more outgoing and confident. She paused, her voice softening even further. So, thank you. With that, she stood on tiptoe and swiftly pressed a soft, warm kiss to my cheek. Then, before I could even react, she turned and darted out of my room like a startled deer. I stood there dumbfounded, reaching up to touch my cheek. It felt as if the warmth and scent of her lips still lingered there. My heart was utterly in chaos. From that night on, the unspoken barrier between Chloe and me seemed to have been completely shattered. Though neither of us said anything explicitly, our glances spoke volumes. The way she looked at me was no longer just a landlord looking at a tenant. There was a shyness and tenderness reserved only for a girl looking at someone she cared for. And the way I looked at her grew bolder, more possessive. Poor Maya, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware. Every day, she'd still enthusiastically come to my room for lessons, treating me as her all-knowing master, completely oblivious that her most respected master and her beloved cousin were secretly getting together. Sometimes Chloe and I would secretly hold hands on the living room couch, using the TV as a cover. Maya would be on the floor nearby, sweating buckets doing planks, still calling out, "Chloe, Master, look at my back, is it sagging?" Chloe and I would exchange glances, both seeing the barely suppressed laughter in the other's eyes. It was thrilling and sweet all at once. That weekend, Maya announced she was going shopping for new clothes to test her progress, and insisted Chloe and I come along to help her choose. I hadn't planned on going, but one look from Chloe, and I immediately changed my mind. "All right, let's go." At the mall, Maya flitted through various clothing stores like a cheerful butterfly. I had to admit, her figure really was improving. Many of the tight jeans she used to struggle to squeeze in and now fit perfectly, accentuating her firm glutes and long, slender thighs. "Master, how does this look?" she asked, twirling in a body-hugging miniskirt, her face beaming with pride. "Looks good, very lively." I offered a perfunctory comment. My attention, however, was entirely on the woman picking out dresses beside us. Chloe was wearing a white dress today, her long hair flowing over her shoulders, her presence radiating gentle charm. She picked up a light blue maxi dress, held it against herself, and turned to ask me, "Ethan, do you think this looks good?" "Beautiful," I genuinely praised. When the person is beautiful, anything they wear looks good. Chloe's face subtly flushed, and she gave me a playfully chiding look. Maya, standing nearby, looked at me, then at her cousin, and finally sensed that something was off. "Hey," she leaned closer and whispered, "why do I get the feeling? Something's weird between you and my cousin." "Is there?" I asked, not batting an eye. "You must be mistaken." "Really?" Maya narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Just then, an unwelcome voice broke the peace. Well, if it isn't Chloe Adams. What a coincidence. A man in a loud floral shirt, sporting a thick gold chain, his hair slicked back with an excessive amount of gel, looking like a caricature of a wannabe gangster, walked over to us, an overtly made-up woman draped on his arm. Seeing the man, Chloe's expression instantly turned cold. "Brandon Scott, we're not friends," Chloe said, her voice like ice. This Brandon Scott was a distant relative of Chloe's who had been relentlessly pursuing her, clinging to her like a stubborn pest. Now, cousin," Brandon said, grinning as he approached, his eyes shamelessly raking over Chloe's figure, filled with greed. "Haven't seen you in a few days, and you're even prettier. So, have you thought it over? Come with me, and I promise you'll be living the good life." "Get lost," Chloe replied with just 2 words. Brandon's face darkened. but he quickly forced a smile back. His gaze shifted to me, tinged with contempt and scrutiny. "And who's this?" "My boyfriend." Before I could open my mouth, Chloe suddenly reached out, grabbing my arm and pressing her body tightly against mine. I stiffened, clearly feeling the soft touch of her arm and a slight tremor. Was she using me as a shield? No, that wasn't it. I could feel it. She wasn't acting. The grip on my arm, the tension in her body, it all told me she was serious. Brandon's face completely changed, looking as if he'd just swallowed a fly. "Boyfriend." He looked me up and down, his contempt growing even deeper. "Him? Chloe, when did your taste get so bad? You picked a pretty boy like this." The heavily made-up woman beside him covered her mouth and chuckled. "Right, Chloe. This guy's dressed in cheap knockoffs. His whole outfit probably costs less than my purse. What do you see in him?" Chloe's face went pale with anger. Just as she was about to retort, I squeezed her hand. I stepped forward, shielding Chloe behind me, a playful smile on my face. "And you're Mr. Scott, right?" "It's Brandon Scott." Brandon snapped. "Oh, Brandon," I nodded. "You're right, my clothes aren't worth much. Unlike you, Brandon, with that big gold chain and slick back hair. You really scream successful businessman, don't you?" I then shifted gears, continuing, "But you know, a man's worth isn't about what he wears. It's about whether he can protect his woman." As I spoke, I suddenly reached out, swift as lightning, and snatched Brandon's thick gold chain, thicker than my thumb. "What are you doing?" Brandon yelped, startled. Ignoring him, I gave it a gentle squeeze between my fingers. Crack! A sharp, distinct sound. The seemingly hefty gold chain snapped in two. I picked up the two halves of the gold chain, held them to my eyes for a closer look, then let out an enlightened, "Oh, so it's just gold-plated." I carelessly dropped the broken chain onto the floor, where it landed with a cheap clinking sound. "Brandon, your successful businessman attire doesn't seem very durable, does it?" The entire world instantly fell silent. Brandon and the woman beside him were both dumbfounded. They stared open-mouthed at the two yellowing pieces of chain on the floor, their faces looking worse than if they'd eaten something foul. Brandon, especially, went from red to pale. It was as if he'd been stripped naked in public, all his pretense and dignity shattered to pieces with that single crack. Surrounding store employees and customers all cast curious glances, pointing and whispering. "Oh my God, it's fake. I'm dying. I thought he was some big shot CO. That guy's crazy strong." Snapped it with one hand. Chloe was also stunned, her mouth slightly agape. She stared at me incredulously. She knew Ethan was strong, but she hadn't realized he was this strong. Maya's gaze, meanwhile, had shifted from mere admiration to absolute fanaticism. Her eyes were shining. She was practically about to yell, "You're the man, master." You. Brandon pointed at me, trembling with rage, but unable to utter a single word. "What about me?" I yawned, rubbing my ear, looking utterly bored. "Wearing fake bling to show off? Aren't you embarrassed? Now get out of here with your girlfriend and stop annoying my Chloe." I said "my Chloe" with complete conviction, letting the words hang in the air. Chloe's body trembled when she heard that, and two blushes immediately rose to her cheeks. But she didn't refute me. Instead, she hugged my arm even tighter. "You just wait." Brandon finally managed to blurt out that classic threat, then dragged his equally ashen-faced companion away, scampering off amidst the laughter of the crowd. Finally, peace and quiet. WHO. Maya was the first to cheer, leaping straight onto my back. "Master, you were incredible. You're my hero." She slammed into me, making me stumble and almost lose my balance. Get down. You're a grown woman," I said, slightly annoyed, pried her off my back. Chloe also snapped out her daze. She looked at me, her beautiful eyes shining with an unprecedented light. "Ethan, you were amazing," she said sincerely, a slight tremble in her voice. "Being told you're amazing by the woman you care about, right to your face. That feeling was better than making $1 million. I proudly raised an eyebrow, reaching out to wrap an arm around her slender waist, pulling her closer into my embrace. "Now you see what your boyfriend could do, huh?" Chloe's face instantly went scarlet. She shyly buried her head in my chest and softly hummed an affirmation. That sound was so soft and sweet, it melted my heart. Maya, watching our lovey-dovey display, finally caught on with a delayed reaction. Wait a minute. She pointed at us, her eyes wide as saucers. You two, when did you get together? Seeing Maya's utterly heartbroken expression, like my cousins being swindled, Chloe and I exchanged glances and couldn't help but laugh. What do you mean got together? That sounds so crude, I corrected. This is called mutual attraction, understand? I understand, Jack Squat. Maya threw her hands up, scratching her head frantically. I treated you like a master, and you're trying to hit on my cousin? Ethan, you animal. Hey, that's not fair, I retorted, righteous indignation in my voice. Your cousin hit on me first. I did not. Chloe immediately lifted her head from my chest, hitting my arm, both shy and annoyed. You did. You even kissed me that night. That was thank you. Does thank you usually involve lips? You, watching us flirt brazenly in front of her, Maya felt her entire worldview collapse. Her hard-earned master had, in the blink of an eye, become her cousin's boyfriend? What was this even? She felt like an idiot, being led around by the nose by the two of us. No way. I don't agree, Maya announced, hands on her hips, pouting angrily. Ethan, if you want to be my cousin's boyfriend, you have to pass my test. Oh, what kind of test? I asked, intrigued. Maya stammered, unable to come up with a test on the spot. After a long pause, she finally said, you have to completely fix my damn pear-shaped figure within a month. I want a body like a Victoria's Secret model. Me, speechless. Chloe, snickered. This girl, she was trying to get free lessons out of me. Fine, no problem, I readily agreed. But I have a condition. What condition? From now on, you're not allowed to call me master anymore. I pointed to myself. Call me brother-in-law. Maya's face instantly flushed. She squirmed for a long time before squeezing out 2 words through her teeth. Brother-in-law. Her voice was barely audible, softer than a mosquito's buzz, but Chloe and I both heard it. Chloe laughed, even happier, leaning into my embrace, her entire weight resting on me, blissful as a contented woman. I held her close, looking at my awkward yet adorable future sister-in-law, feeling utterly content. Having a gorgeous landlord for a girlfriend and a feisty future sister-in-law as a disciple. This life, it seemed, pretty good, actually. Just as I was basking in this blissful fantasy, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, puzzled. Hello, is this Mr. Hayes? A cold male voice spoke from the other end of the line. This is him. Who is this? Who I am isn't important, the man said coldly. What is important is that you've offended someone you shouldn't have. Brandon Scott, you remember him, right? My brow furrowed. You have 1 hour. Come to the abandoned factory on the west side of town. Come alone, don't try anything, and don't call the police. Otherwise, your 2 pretty girls might just run into some trouble. The call ended. My expression instantly turned grim. What's wrong? Chloe sensed my change in mood immediately, asking anxiously. Nothing. I pocketed my phone, smiling at her and Maya. Just a spam call. Oh, Chloe looked skeptical, but didn't press further. Come on, weren't we going to keep shopping? I said, acting completely normal, continuing to walk forward with my arm around Chloe's waist. But my mind was racing. That loser Brandon, he actually dared to get people to retaliate, and he threatened me using Chloe and Maya. He had crossed the line. While I continued shopping with them, I discreetly sent a few messages from my phone. An hour later, I made an excuse about needing to use the restroom and temporarily left them. Come back quickly, Chloe cautioned. Don't worry. I smiled at her. The moment I turned away, the smile vanished without a trace, replaced by a cold, murderous intent. I hailed a cab and headed straight for the abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. Inside the factory, Brandon sat smugly on a rickety chair, flanked by a dozen thugs armed with metal pipes. Boss Scott, you think that punk will actually show? One of the goons asked. Don't worry. Brandon exhaled a smoke ring, a cruel grin on his face. He won't dare not come for those 2 girls. When he gets here, I'm going to personally break his legs. He'll learn what happens when you cross me. No sooner had he spoken than the factory door was kicked open. Silhouetted against the light, I slowly walked in. I'm here, I said, looking at Brandon, my voice calm but with a chilling edge. Where are my girls? Well, you've got guts, coming alone. Brandon stood up, sneering. Your girls? Once you get down on your knees and beg, maybe I'll consider letting them go. Oh, really? I smiled. What are you smiling about? I'm smiling because you're a dead man walking, and you don't even know it. The moment I finished speaking, the factory windows all around us suddenly shattered from the outside. Men in black suits, with grim expressions, poured in from all directions like specters. Their movements were precise and disciplined. In an instant, Brandon and his thugs were completely surrounded. Brandon and his cronies were stunned silent. What the hell was happening? Was this a movie set? A suited man, the apparent leader, quickly walked up to me and bowed respectfully. Sir, are you all right? I nodded, my gaze sweeping past him and landing on Brandon, whose face had gone utterly white with terror. Deal with him. Cleanly. Yes, sir. The leader gestured, and several muscular men in suits immediately charged forward, tackling Brandon and his thugs to the ground like eagles snatching chicks. Horrifying screams and the sickening crack of breaking bones intertwined, creating a symphony of despair in the empty factory. I didn't spare them another glance, turning and walking out of the factory. The sunlight was a bit blinding. I pulled out my phone and dialed Chloe's number. Hello, where are you? Why aren't you back yet? Chloe's anxious and worried voice came through the phone. I smiled, my voice returning to its usual gentle tone. I'm back. The mall just had terrible signal. I grabbed your favorite bubble tea. I'll meet you at the entrance. When I returned to the mall entrance with a bubble tea, Chloe and Maya were anxiously looking around. Seeing me appear, Chloe immediately ran over and threw her arms around me. Where did you go? You scared me to death. Her voice was choked with emotion. I'm back now, aren't I? I said, smiling and patting her back, handing her the bubble tea. Here, your favorite. Chloe took the bubble tea, but didn't drink it, just stared at me with red eyes. Maya also walked over, sniffing me suspiciously. Brother-in-law, why do you smell like blood? My heart clenched, but I quickly laughed. No way. Your nose must be acting up, Maya. Someone was smoking in the restroom. Probably just cigarette smell. Really? Maya said, still not entirely convinced. All right, let's head home, I said, putting an arm around Chloe and ruffling Maya's hair with the other, leading them decisively toward the parking lot. Back at home, everything returned to its usual warmth. Chloe went to make dinner, while Maya clung to me, insisting I continue to correct her posture, as if the harrowing incident that afternoon had never even happened. That night, I lay in bed, Chloe curled up in my arms like a kitten. Ethan, she suddenly spoke. Who are you, really? My heart tightened. I'm just me, your boyfriend. No. Chloe shook her head. She looked up, her beautiful eyes startlingly bright in the darkness. You're not ordinary. Today, did you do something dangerous? A woman's intuition is truly terrifying. I remained silent for a moment, then decided not to hide it from her anymore. My family has some business interests, I said softly. So, I know people who can handle certain kinds of trouble. Brandon, he won't bother you ever again, I interrupted her, pulling her tightly into my embrace. Chloe, all you need to know is that from now on, with me around, no one will ever hurt you. Chloe didn't ask further. She just buried her face in my chest and nodded firmly. Okay. In that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of contentment and responsibility. The next day, Maya knocked on my door bright and early. Brother-in-law, get up. Time for class. I yawned as I opened the door to see her in a brand new workout outfit, brimming with energy. Brother-in-law, I've decided, she said, looking at me with determination. I want to be as strong as you are. Not just have a great body, but be able to fight too. Will you teach me self-defense? Me, speechless, looking at this energetic future sister-in-law, and then thinking of the beauty still asleep in my arms. I suddenly realized my future days were probably never going to be boring. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling upon Chloe's peaceful sleeping face. A new day had begun, and